that any game that allows you to have non-consensual PvP will cannibalize itself and it will never be a mainstream game.
100%.
There will always be people that like those games and people that play them, but you basically make the ceiling for your game extremely low.
I mean, even with it's not even just non-consensual PvP. I think any game that has like at least an MMO that has like an extremely high focus around PvP won't be a mainstream game. I mean, we can just look at Throne of Liberty, right? Throne of Liberty, yeah, it had like some initial mainstream success, but like, we can look at the Steam charts now and we can see that it has dropped off significantly since launch. Like, it's basically dropped off as much as Lost Ark did within the first month. So, in terms of percentage wise, it's lost a third of its player base already. This is usually the case for most RPGs. We're not gonna lie, I for sure. But I think like I think any MMO that has a big focus around PvP will just never be mainstream because the majority of players that play games are casuals. They're looking for something to do after a long day of work. They're looking for something to do, after a long day of school, just go back home, rest, relax. Maybe they have like 2 or 3 hours to play games in the day after work, right? And then they don't want to go in and step into like a stressful PvP situation. Because and also, if you're going to do PvP for the most part, you're going to play other games, right? You're going to play League, you're going to play Valorant, you're going to play these other games where, PvP is just the entire thing, as opposed to like MMOs where you have to grind your way up to get to the point where you can PvP and do well and dominate other people. And then also, a lot of these PvP games have some sort of like pay to win mechanic to them too. Really, the issue with Throne was the skills and attack systems. I mean, there's a lot of issues with Throne for sure that can like be attributed to its drop in player base. But there's also a couple things, right? MMOs overall, like for the most part, over time, people are going to stop playing it. There's gonna be less and less people, right? And then like on top of that, I think that they a lot of people go into it expecting it to have like some sort of robust PvE experience, and they think like they can just keep playing it without playing PvP, which is, in some cases you can do. But I think like the amount of stuff that you can do that's PvE based drops significantly after like 3 weeks. Like you can basically get through every single thing you want to do in PvE in 2 to 3 weeks, and then after that, you're just done. And then also the other thing is like there's such a heavy focus on the guild system that I think a lot of players just don't want to deal with. Like I make a good bit of TL content on my YouTube, right? Um, like I have a lot of I focus a lot of time on shorts for TL, and they get a good amount of views. Like 37K, 25K, 34K, 48K, right, 57K. Yeah, some pretty good views. 39K, and there was a video that I made about like world bosses. This one right
So
here.
Arc bosses have just released in Throne and Liberty, with Queen Belendir coming out a little bit under a week ago at Sandworm Lair, and now most recently, Tevent at Runes of Terrain. Now these bosses drop the most endgame loot in the game, so you'll definitely want to gear up to fight these bosses and get their drops. And with great loot always comes some great controversy. And to no one's surprise, people have already used the guild loot system to take advantage of these drops. On this Reddit thread, someone posted that their guild had a valuable item drop from the Arc boss, and after this happened, the guild leader went and kicked every single person from the guild to keep the item for themselves. So, much like what I've said before, be careful out there. Pick the right guild, find the right people, or else you could find yourself getting scammed just like this guild.
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? Like, you have to be in a guild to like participate in a lot of in a lot of the game systems, but there's also a large like player responsibility. Like the guild is kind of like a governing like body in many senses, that a lot of people have to deal with, right? And there's gonna be like guild drama, drama between guilds, drama within guilds, and all these things that just like make it so like a lot of people just, it's like, I'm here to play a game. I'm not trying to like be in a government system or like get restricted or get my items stolen from me or be worried about me this and that. It's just like there's a lot of things in Throne and Liberty that just make it so that it's not a very casual game. And again, like I said, the game is, most games, I'd say a lot of games are driven by the casual community. That's crazy what I was saying in Lost Ark. Like right after Issa got the item that got put into the guild bank for what the boss I did solo. Yeah, exactly, right? You know, I killed the world boss, I got an item, it got put in the guild bank, and then will I ever see that item? I will never know. Yeah. There's just a lot of these factors in a game like Throne and Liberty. And I think like the guild system is like very, very much like a big reason why a lot of people end up not wanting to play the game. And on top of that, right, I think that there's also the thing of like having one really big guild and big alliance that just takes over an entire server to where like nobody else can actually get loot. Like there was a problem with TL where there was one guild called Ethereum that basically was the biggest guild and the biggest alliance in the server. Bigger, like, and like it was even bigger than it like intended, because you do have a limit to how big your alliance can be. But then at some point they figured out a workaround where you can mark certain people and certain guilds as enemies, right? Like these are your enemies, and they would be like show up as a different color in the overworld. But the thing is, what they ended up doing is they marked the guilds they don't want to kill as enemies. That way they would show up as different colors, so they would know not to kill those people in the guild fights because they're in alliance together. So they can basically overcome the limit of how big an alliance should be to take over servers and take over world boss loot and do all that. Because like the guild that does like the most contribution world boss will be able to get the, you know, the loot and all that stuff. There's just like a lot of drama that comes in from like a game like Throne and Liberty that ends up just being very annoying to deal with, and like a lot of people just don't want to keep up with. There are also trolls, yeah. There's a lot of things, just because it's like, in a way, like, you know, with MMOs, you want them to be immersive, right? Like not just a big group, they're assholes who know how to deal with that. Exactly, right? The thing is with MMOs, there's so many situations where you end up having, you know, you want the world to be immersive. You want to play an MMO because you want to get immersed into that world. You want to get lost in it. You want to feel like it's like an extension of your life, and it's like for you to just lose your day away. Which, when they build a lot more of these immersive systems, that does end up happening. But at the same time, when you build these immersive systems in, and a lot of times it could end up being that, wait, this is just too close to real life. There's too much stuff, too much player control that the game gives the players, that people end up like, you know, exploiting. They end up trolling. They end up doing all these things that human nature a lot of times is just naturally, you know, driven towards. Like they'll do anything to get like an advantage.